Hello over the peak, it's the end of my week, Friday, world news. And we're going to get a bit oily today. Let's start here with change in world oil consumption and percentage change in world GDP. Going back to 1981, where oil was a bit short, so GDP came down. Now in 1991, the economy went a bit funny. There was a recession, so not as much oil was being used. And since then, it's been a dynamic between... it's never been not having quite enough oil. It's been a question of having to pay extra for the oil. And that extra price may be bringing the economy down. But what we have here is two things to bear in mind, I think. The chance that if there's not enough oil coming into the economy, GDP will go down. And obviously the consumption of oil will go down as well when GDP goes down. GDP and oil consumption linked, arm in arm. But now we're dealing in price. Okay, we've got price on this chart. This is oil. We get the problem with all liquids in some of the numbers when talking about oil. Other things are put in as opposed to just putting a straw in the ground and getting oil out. You've got tar sands and some ethanol and things like that. But this, by the numbers, looks like it's just oil because we're starting going back to 2002 with OPEC pumping out just over 25 million barrels a day and the rest of them just over 40. So that's 65 plus, which now is at 30 plus 42, 72, which is probably a bit about right, I think, for oil. And you can see it really hasn't gone up much at all, but the price has been quite dynamic with that great big spike in 2008 and pushing up pretty high now. But you can see basically that the price is bottom left, top right, and that's only from 02 till now. And we're going from a price, this is Brent, not WTI, going from 20 to 100 over those 9 years. And that must be affecting the economy, money-fied GDP. Who's using the oil? It is not we, the advanced industrial Western nations. We're the lilac ones that since 2005 have been using less and less oil. It's them foreign gits. Non-OECD, emerging markets, anybody that's not super duper and westernized like what we is. And look how much they are cranking up. Look at that difference. That he started at, this is 1 million barrels a day, same as the other was denominated in, starting at 25, and now they've doubled to over 50. And there's projection there towards the end of the chart. But if you go to 2011, it's next year, is it? Or the year after, where they use more than what we do. And will go on, trying to use more and more and more and more, except the production just isn't there, so the price will have to go up. The IEA in its latest output has given us a global oil demand in 2012 is expected to rise by 1.5 million barrels a day, year-on-year increase, up to 91 million barrels a day. And again, that 91 is because they put in all sorts of other liquids to make up that big number of 91. Growth is driven entirely by non-OECD countries. That chart I got, the last one, what would be number 3, was from an IEA PDF. Growth is entirely driven by non-OECD countries, with OECD demand declining slightly. Now, we are more efficient at using fuel than they are. I'll leave it there. The global estimate for 2011 is raised by 0.2 million barrels a day to 89.5, which is 1.5 on the year before. So 1.2 million barrels year on year. So 1.2 million barrels raised this year, 1.5 the next year, based on non-OECD sucking it up, baby, with upward non-OECD baseline revisions outweighing downward adjustments in the OECD. In other words, we're going down, but they're going up an awful lot more. And we are going down because of persistent high price and weaker economic activity. They are just reveling in the fact that they can get oil at all and will sacrifice anything to get hold of it. And will continue to do so. It's not as though, number 5, it's not as though they're not out there, the professionals looking for oil. This is rig count going back to 1995. North America looking for oil, with rigs out there and exploiting what is there. That big dip towards the end would be almost definitely, I would think, Gulf oil shut down after the BP disaster, and they're getting out there, but it's basically bottom left, top right, not huge, but they're getting out there and they're really trying to find oil, but they're just not finding the extra oil. And you can see the international people are out there increasing their rig count as well. They're trying to find the oil, but they're just not finding it. But the demand is relentlessly increasing. Saudi Arabia, everyone seems to talk about Saudi Arabia as the great source of unlimited quantities of oil because everyone refers to their reserves, and they've got 150 years of reserves waiting for us to use and things like that. It isn't that easy. Not much Saudi oil goes to the United States, I don't think. I think it mainly goes east. The United States relies on local oil from Canada, Mexico, Argentina and places like that. Venezuela. Anyway, Saudi, the great saviour of the world because they've got unlimited quantities of oil. Oil indicators at the top. Oil production for 2005 is the first column. 2005, are you with there? Yeah, 9.4 million barrels a day averaging, 9.4. It's wonderful. Sometimes it's more than Russia puts out and sometimes it's less. 2005 it was 9.4 and in 2010 it was 8.2, which, if my math is about right, is about 1.2 million barrels a day less in 2010 than it was in 2005. Important, this part. Exports. The Saudi Arabia is using so much more of its own oil than it ever used to. 7.5 million barrels a day exported 2005 is now down to 5.8 because they're using it themselves. They have realized the importance of their own oil and they're using it themselves. They're trying to build a future beyond the oil that they're pumping at the moment. Down at the bottom, this break-even oil price is not so much to suck it up out of the ground. That's still reasonably cheap, so they say, in Saudi Arabia. It's because they need it in their economy at a certain rate. That is the price that they want, and they'll want to have, which was $30 a barrel in 2005, and it's over doubled to $72 a barrel now, and will increase 2015 to 90. But any of these projections are all nonsense because nobody really knows. The price, it'll be completely different in 2015. But you get the idea from that. Saudi are using their own oil. They're not exporting the oil that they've got. They're using it themselves. And this is the same for many of the Middle Eastern and everybody else that's got oil. They're using it themselves. And there's fewer and fewer exports. And this, of course, will knock on to the real money economy. The real money that we've discussed this week will be affected by this funny oil energy stuff that some people go on about. That's me for the week. Talk to you over the weekend. See you next week. Bye.